Hello and welcome back to the CPO Strategy Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Sean Garliopach, and today I'm delighted to be joined by two solution design experts from ORO Labs, Durrani Jayapraksam and Sabi Rosales. Today, they'll be sharing their experiences addressing operational process improvement and digital transformation challenges that they faced at previous companies such as Vodafone and IBM, and how they're taking that experience to build resilient orchestration solutions for companies using the ORO platform. I hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome to the CPO Strategy Podcast.
So, welcome Sabi and Durrani to the CPO Strategy Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you both here.
Thank you.
Thank you. The pleasure is shared.
Absolutely. I love to start these conversations when I speak to procurement professionals like yourselves about their journey and their why, because everyone has a sort of different reason for getting into procurement, don't they? A lot of people say that it happens sort of by accident. Was that sort of the case for you? Sabi, would you like to go first?
Thank you. Well, I would say it was semi-accident. So I studied in chemical engineering, and I started to work for a global chemical company. And I was responsible to define the processes, find opportunities to improve the processes within the entire organization. And one of the processes that I was looking into was procurement and supply chain. And I was quite impressed with the impact of the procurement into the organizations and how they tie more or less each department and the organization. And after 2 years into my careers, I ended up doing procurement actively. And it's been almost 20 years since then.
Wow. And Darren, for you?
So it started in college, the passion. I was a physics graduate, right? I was doing BSc physics, chemistry, maths, and I wanted to get into oceanography, but I just landed into management, and I was doing finance, right? US GAAP, UK GAAP, all these financial analysis, and then I had this module on supply chain. It was a problem, and the case studies that we had really excited me in this world of, hey, this is how the world goes around, right? So straight after college, I had an option to join financial firms, but I chose to join GE at that time, working as their buyer in direct manufacturing. And that was an amazing experience. And then I went into IBM, starting to work as a buyer on natural gas and electricity and things like that. And believe me, it's been 20 years, like Sabi said, time just flew.
People find themselves there and then they never want to leave, don't they? And for obviously yourselves at ORO Labs, Darren, maybe you start with this one. How did you end up with ORO Labs, and what's that journey been like for you so far?
So ORO Labs happened. It was not a planned move that, hey, this is the company I want to join and things like that. A few years back, I started down the journey of trying procurement orchestration at IBM. We were trying to build our own product. And then we just, went into ServiceNow. We were trying to orchestrate through ServiceNow. So I was the product owner for internal IBM procurement, and we were working on that. And, I just got introduced to ORO through a common friend. And, he said, I was very dejected that, hey, does orchestration matter to the world, right? I'm on this path. This is something that I want to do, but what if, this doesn't matter in the market, right? So I had a lot of self-doubt in me, which is when I got introduced to ORO. And it was more like almost like a coaching thing, right? To say, what is the industry looking like? Give me an external perspective. And I got introduced to Sudhir after that. And believe me, I was just blown away by the passion that he showed, especially when it comes to the problems we were trying to solve, right? And there was this honest person trying to give me the same information that I felt myself, rather than defending something that that person might have built himself. He was honest in accepting that, yes, that is the flaw in that product, and that is what we're trying to fix. And that honesty was the real attracting factor for me.
Lovely. And for yourself, Sabi?
I think what makes us all common in Oro is that we are all passionate about procurement, and maybe not just doing procurement, but also improving how things work and make a procurement respected, loved, and admired organization. And similar to other colleagues, I was also doing some orchestration projects within Vodafone. So I started in the chemical industry, but then it was very quick that I moved to Vodafone Procurement Organization, and I worked 15 years there. And when we were doing our own orchestration journey, I was really enjoying because orchestration as a concept, it was allowing us to build what we want rather than to be framed from the solutions that we get from the market. And I was thinking that, okay, orchestration is nice, but is there a better way of doing it? Like, do we need to create all the forms, all the processes from the scratch? And is there a way to also bring AI and intelligence to orchestration? And this is where I met with the founders of Oro, and I was really impressed with what they have already built and their passion about the future and the roadmap ahead. And it was quite, an instant decision to live 15 years in a beautiful, great company at Vodafone and moving to the dark side of the business and becoming part of a solution provider, let's say.
I like the dark side. Each of you have been involved in building custom orchestration solutions prior to the recent explosion of procurement orchestration tools. Can you say a little bit about the challenges experienced by your departments and sort of what precipitated sort of investment into developing a solution?
When I started my job, when I was doing the process mapping, we were using a tool called Lotus Notes from IBM 20 years back. And Lotus Notes, I mean, maybe it is not called an orchestration solution, but it was practically possible to build any process within the Lotus Note, but just simply configuring it for expenses to get the request from procurement from anyone. Um, and then the time of those suites, that all the SaaS solutions that they came, that we were, forced to just squeeze us, fit into what we were giving, rather than making procurement easy for everyone. And then with my new generation experience with Pega and other solutions, as I mentioned, it was beautiful. Like we were able to create, but it is time consuming. I mean, imagine in a procurement process when you are bringing a new supplier, onboarding a new supplier, where for each country you might have to put different questions, different documentations to be collected, like W9 in US, and it is time consuming to build all this. And so that was one challenges with the generic orchestration solutions. And the second challenge that I have also seen is that yes, the no code orchestration solutions were kicking in, and which is great. That helps you to build much easily and which relatively bring this business citizen development concept so that you don't need to have those technical skills. But there was always a limit in terms of what you can build with those no code solutions, and also considering the complexities or the needs that to meet different categories, different countries, different size and shape of demands from business. And and this is where I have also seen the limitations of the no code solutions. So mm, still, I think they were great, but when we see the solutions like Oro, it was quite eye opening, I would say.
And we'll get on to how sort of Oro's changed the game in just a second. Darren, have you got anything to sort of expand on Sabi's point?
Yes, one point is on the integration capabilities, right? So when we tried to build our own solutions, right, one of the biggest problems we had was integrating with so many different applications, right? So when you build something on your own within your own company, you don't really go low code, no code. There's always development resources who will get involved. The system architecture gets complex, and integrating into multiple system becomes a huge nightmare. And we couldn't integrate into some ERPs. It took us 5 months to figure out integrations itself because you don't have that kind of skills, especially when you look at some legacy systems, financial systems that you might be using. The complexity of geographies is one, right? In terms of a process complexity, that is still a easier problem to solve, according to me, in comparison to the technology complexity. And do people even know what is needed from the legacy systems to be able to integrate with the solution, right? So the product becomes very technology heavy, and making changes to the product is a nightmare. And that's one thing I love about Oro's low code, no code is that it's so easy to integrate. I'm a non-technical person. I've been a process functional expert, and I mean, I'm a technology geek. I can go look at a product, work on a product, but I'm not somebody who can, sit and build codes, right? And over here, within the first few weeks, I started building my own processes. That's how simple it is, right? So I like the simplicity of it. And any integration we need, what I used to think will take weeks has taken days, right? So that's my biggest learning, that companies sometimes, in that effort to make versus buy, just add on so much of complexity to their technology, to their native thing, instead of just buying something off the shelf and putting it in.
Well, I think I know the answer to the next point, which is sort of how would your previous orchestration experiences have changed if you'd had Oro as a tool beforehand? I guess you've
Oh,
had more time, wouldn't you?
oh my God, we could have done so many things, right? I mean, I know the supplier onboarding process that we used to work on in IBM, and I know the intake process that we used to have. Again, by category, by country, things are so different, and we used to struggle because sometimes the solutions we chose cannot be something that non-technical people can configure. You need the CIO or the technology department to come and do things for you. So even one small change just becomes a nightmare, right? It goes into a queue. It needs to go through its own reviews before it can even get considered for development. Even if it's a simple button change. Hey, I don't want this to say yes. I want it to say approve, for example. Even that takes forever. And here it's all, I can do these things, like I said. So that's, if I had a tool like this in the past, I'm sure the users at IBM would have been extremely happy.
Mm. Anything to add to that, Zabi, on your side?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, with Oro, I think we are also giving a different experience. So, with all the projects that I have done before, like we have the application that the end users are using, but then there's the kitchen where the processes, the rules, and the forms are being set. And as both of us, we are not technical people. That kitchen, it was not visible to us. So now, like, I feel like I work in an open kitchen restaurant where I see what is happening there, what is triggering what. I have my own views how this can be better prepared for the customers. So it is not just giving transparency, but also giving confidence, and also giving and feeling that yes, I'm part of the kitchen. So when I'm having customers, they know what is happening there. They are able to also contribute their ideas to say, why we are not asking this question before, why you are not putting this after that, because they have visibility to what is behind. And I think that's, in a way, it's also a game changer, because particularly when it becomes to success, people and everyone needs to become a team, without working in different silos. And I think that's one of the big changes that Oro brings to the industry.
Mm. Well, what is the cost of not having this tech? So why does procurement need it so much, and what happens if you don't have it?
First of all, right? So we need to also acknowledge that the needs of the organizations are evolving. So it is not that a solution was needed 20 years ago and it wasn't there until recently magically came in, right? So uh, within the last decade, I will say primarily the procurement tech industry has evolved. A number of different new solutions came into place, and particularly for buying, there are lots of new solutions came. And and one of the problems has became was that, okay, how do we tie them together? So if I'm buying pencil, or if I'm buying, making a donation, or if I'm doing a big implementation project, I might have different tools and systems, and how the people are going to know about them, how the people are going to use the right tool to raise the right request. And so that as the system became more complex, in absence of an orchestration solution, and what we have seen that, I mean, whenever you're bringing a new solution to your ecosystem, there was always a hesitation to say, oh, is this going to make things more complicated? Or is this going to help the business users to find what they need? And I think that's one of the main problems that was holding back organizations as a cost, is not just the implementation cost that we discussed, but also the cost of bringing innovation to the organization. I think that was too high.
Yeah, I think similar experience, right? So, technology evolution in every sub process of procurement, and these are all needed technologies, right? Today, if you ask me, do we need a iCertis? Absolutely, we need a Serial Labs, we need an iCertis, we need a CLM which can do that job. And it's no longer that, the one tool like a Ariba or Cooper can solve everything. Every company realized that, hey, what I want, these guys cannot offer. So they started building this plethora of other technologies, and nobody thought about the user experience. So a user would look at a Syrian Lab screen differently than they would look at a Coupa screen or a BioQuest screen, and they're just frustrated, right? So in the end, what happens is they try to bypass the tool and try to do as many things as they can on email and offline, and just use the tool for final, hey, I will just go put this in there. So what you're essentially doing is having a lot of data leak. So you might have a Ariba, but if Ariba sourcing is not used for every RFQ and you're using emails, can I get any insights out of that? I might have bought a tool that can give me great analytics and spend reports and things, but if I don't have the quotations, is AI going to work and tell me whether my quotation is fair value or not, right? So I think orchestration is needed that way, because you bring one simple UX to the client. They don't care what happens in the kitchen. They want to see their request. I am asking for something in a simple way, and they don't want procurement to be a black box. I mean, in the last 20 years, I don't know the number of times I've heard clients saying this. We don't know where our request is stuck. You guys are a black box. I mean, when you buy a pizza, you get a tracker to say where it is. But when you order something, you don't understand where the request is. And that's why you need orchestration, where you can give a simple UX to the client and at the same time ensure, even from a procurement world, right? A procurement buyer is expected to know all these other systems to go and fulfill that purchase. Why? They just need to click a button to go there, do the work. If things can be pre populated, well and good. We bring speed and agility into the process. We bring transparency in the process. And I think that's where orchestration is very, very much needed.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that. And all these food analogies, they are making me very hungry. It's lunchtime here. No, but you're absolutely right. And now that you're working for a vendor, what are the biggest motivations for you? How big that you're working for a vendor?
So when I was at IBM, right? I mean, I used to talk to vendors. I've spoken to many companies, from RPA, from contact center technologies to orchestration technologies and so on. Being on the other side is a revelation in many ways. Um, I am unlearning and relearning a lot of things, I would say, right?
How
So
challenging is that?
oh, it sure is. I mean, see, at IBM, I was very good at what I was doing, right? I was known as an expert in these things. But when I'm out there facing a client who's maybe not as mature as a process that IBM had, for example, right? The IBM's had a mandate for a very long time on procurement. This department was very well established. I mean, there were still things that I used to feel that, hey, we need to do things better. But when I really go and look at the outside world, I realize, hey, no, this is not the same maturity levels, right? Every organization is in a different learning path. They have their complexities for a reason. So I think it's a lot of relearning for me in not pushing them too far as well into challenging them, right? First is to become a trusted partner in understanding their landscape, understanding their business, and then suggesting improvements through our platform, on how it's going to help them out, right? And I think that has been, I would say, a biggest change for me coming in from what I was doing to a vendor partner, right? I mean, of course, I bring my expertise into process transformation and stuff, but a lot of relearning for me not to push too far, too much, too soon, and, you know, solving for the complexities of the business in a different way.
Thank you for that. So, be on your side, do you relate to a lot of what Darren said?
Yeah, I think that's very common for many of us, and even that we were on the other side, I will say we were still serving the business. We were still transforming how the procurement is done and engaging with different stakeholders, different geographies. So I think wherever you say anything about procurement, it's always about fun, passion, and sometimes with stress, because yes, you have a big list of stakeholders to serve. And but at the same time, I think being on the vendor side, this gives me also an opportunity to share my experience with wider audience. I mean, like the podcast we are doing today. This week I had maybe 5, 6 different customers. Some people they find just I want one thing, I want to focus. That totally fine, right? That most of us do that. But for me, I like that variety that gives me the interaction that gives me that I'm able to contribute to different people's journey. Part of what they are trying to do, and then this is always two-sided. So learning experiencing learning, as you said, is fundamentally is the same, and that's one part of it. But the second part also is that uh, we don't work for any vendor. We work for a relatively small company, right? So, and I see that the dynamics is also quite different, because I feel like I working like a family business. Yes,
Yeah.
we are not maybe born as a family members, but we feel that way, we act that way, and and this is what we also try to reflect when we engage with customers as one team. Doesn't matter if I'm from Oro or from the implementation or from the SI consulting side, but we are one team, and here we are to make a difference.
That's lovely. Yeah, I think that's the key, isn't it? That family atmosphere, even if you're not, it makes such a difference, doesn't it?
Yeah. Corporate life is, I think that's also a unique place that where you learn everything, right? So if any of possible have started without going to a corporate route, yeah, that might have been also challenging. But it's a analogy to the examples. Like there are desserts, there are salads, so there are different foods to taste, and be like,
It should be
no,
a food podcast, I think, at this rate. Yeah. In terms of examples of successes that you've seen since working with Oral customers, are there any that really stick out in your mind? Any influential examples of success stories?
See, I've been here for the last 6 months or so, right? But what I have seen is I'm already working with 4 big customers, and that's a huge amount of trust to place in somebody new, right? That itself was a big I would say humbled me a lot, right? So, you're in a well-established corporate career. Even if you fall, you have a big cushion and things like that. And you're in a small place, and that family environment that Sabi said matters so much, because everybody wants you to be successful. So it is not me alone who is building that success story, because I have people behind me wanting me to win, right? So every client we are talking with, I just have to talk to somebody and say, I just have to put it in a group. Hey, I'm trying to solve this for this client. Immediately, there are 3 or 4 people immediately pinging me saying, hey, do you want to talk? We can figure it out together. Right. So I think that 4 clients that I'm working with right now, um, I can't name them, of course, but what we have seen is they're really realizing the value that orchestration can bring to them, right? Each one of them, some of them are in the POC stage, some of them are in the implementation stage. The clients are really looking at us to give them a point of view on what they should be doing. Right? What should our processes look like? You guys have all of this knowledge. You tell us, are we doing the right thing? Should our threshold be different? Or if our process sucks, you come and tell us, right? And that's I think a big win for us, where the clients are trusting us to go and define what they should be doing, right? And it's not just orchestration they're talking about. They're talking about their core procurement process and saying, you guys seem to know much more, right? Tell us what the industry is doing. Tell us, what you believe is the right thing to do. So, and I think that is a big win. And I've seen this across two big implementations that we're doing today. And that's really good.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing procurement, I was managing different categories, and one of the typical conversation with my stakeholders will be like, "Hey, Sabi, I'm not happy with this supplier. They have confirmed this, but they have not implemented this. They were supposed to do this." So yes, I mean that's part of life, right? That we are looking for things to become better. But that was a quite common conversation. And then, okay, then are we going to retender? Are we going to replace them? Ah, yeah, maybe we just do another tender after some time. So, and when I joined Oro, one of the things that I was aspiring is that, like once we do something with the customers, they would want more, not to park things. So they will be asking more and more from us. And I think that was for me one of the criteria for success. And recently in Amsterdam, we had our Ora Imagine event where our existing customers, they come together. And we had also some prospect customers, that we were hoping that, the existing customers would also speak to the prospects and share their experiences. What has happened is, yes, those conversations happen, but at the same time, the existing customers were speaking to each other all the time. And at the end of the day, everybody was saying, ah, they have that, I want that too. They have this, why don't we have this? So there was a really good energy and interaction with the existing partners that we work with. And I think that's really makes us proud, and saying that yes, we are doing right use cases. We are not doing things just for the sake of doing it, and the people are being part of the journey. They are enjoying as much as we do. And I think that's even bigger success than transforming the numbers, the KPIs, the metrics that we are using.
And, as technology continues to get more powerful, the impossible becomes the possible just a little bit more all the time. In your mind, what is now achievable in the context of procurement as a result of sort of technical innovation that really sort of wasn't before, and sort of how much has it changed the game?
See, one thing, long back, I think almost when in the start of this boom, right, our CPO at that time at IBM had this vision of AI augmented buyer, right? So he said, we need to have buyerless procurement, or augmented procurement and things like that. And I think that vision is becoming a reality today. This was during the initial Watson days, right? That the statement he made, and that statement always inspired me in saying that, hey, why do we need to touch everything? Why can't we just orchestrate things in and out? So these were all questions I had at that time. And these technologies were not available at that standpoint. But as we move ahead, the power of AI has increased so much that a business, if they want to buy something, they can just do it from the system and be compliant about it. They don't have to wonder whether, hey, is the police going to come and knock at my door that I didn't buy it in the right way? And, is my job going to be at stake? All of that can be avoided because your system can be built with all your rules in such a way that you're compliant, but at the same time, you're doing things in a very simple way. No longer people want to go on 1 hour calls or fill out pages and pages of documentation to say what they want to buy or anything. It should be simple and it should be compliant. It should be easy to do. I can understand some complex projects needs procurement involvement and things, which is why I said AI augmented buyer, right? There should be AI available at the fingertips of a buyer to say, when I get a quotation, for example, AI should be able to say, hey, go and negotiate a little more. The price in the market range for a Java developer with 10 years experience is approximately this. So, that's the level of, a new world that the current technology explosion can bring, both for the client and for the procurement team, that their whole experience is not just doing everything themselves, but they have this assistant constantly sitting on their desktop, which is constantly guiding them, saying that, hey, this is something that you could potentially consider. I mean,
Hmm.
that's where I see the world should be going towards. Sabi, do you have a different thought or?
I think, yeah, I agree. And I think it's also changing the experience. It's not just that you speak to an AI, which is more intelligent, is capable of doing this, or you don't have to deal with some standard templates. I mean, anybody in procurement will have had a standard template to manage where you need to keep having the version in your Excel to make sure that you are using the right one, right? So I think the experience is changing how we interact, first of all, with procurement. Because historically, you will have multiple tools or you will speak to people one to one to get things done. And now we have some alternatives with the evolution of AI and orchestration solutions. I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but now it is giving a wider flexibility to really fit. uh,
Mm.
because a marketing person might want to just really have a direct contact, but if you are just making a small donation, you might be just looking to get it done before you get further distraction. So
Hmm.
this will, I think, will allow also procurement to become more as a trusted advisor to business, if that is the direction, and making procurement having a higher impact than in the organization, in the financials in the organization with the existing capacity. So I think overall it will also impact not just the experience but also the top line and bottom line of the organizations thanks to the repositioning of procurement and technology.
Hmm. And that all feeds nicely into my last point that I want to bring up, which is sort of in your view, what are the next steps for procurement orchestration within ORO, and so sort of how much of an exciting future does ORO have in the space, in your opinions?
I think as Oro, we have, I think, after 4 years since Oro has built, I think we have a very strong and solid solution that can help organizations. And then it continues also like anything in life, it is evolving in a good way. Um, and yes, we expect that new technologies, as they become available, that will become a part of the orchestration in Oro. Uh, and one of the fundamental things that I see today, that as Daranish mentioned, right, that in Oro, you just come to Oro, you don't have to worry about all the tools that you might need to raise a request or track your request because Oro will give you everything. And I imagine one day, maybe not too distant future, that you might even potentially be able to speak to Oro like we speak to some solutions today. And so not just you will be dependent on your laptop, the device that you have, but you will be able to have your Oro like your procurement assistant maybe as a digitally one day. It's not a roadmap feature, but I'm very excited that how Oro will also become partner with the users, not just a tool that they are using.
Absolutely agree, right here. I mean, humanizing the procurement experience is what we are trying to do, right? And this is a very, very procurement centric product, right? We understand the nuances of the procurement team, and procurement is not simple. We have seen a lot of companies facing a lot of issues in terms of fraud, in terms of compliance issues, and they get fined huge amounts because they are not in compliant of certain things. And I think this is where our future is going to be, is literally it's like a DNA of every company, right? And that is the exciting thing that I see as the future, that Oro becomes the DNA of their procurement technology, and in a way they are saving huge amounts of money in compliance suits and things like that by just simply using a product that does everything, that they are defining, that these are the checks and balances that have to be done before something can go out. So I mean, we have a lot of things on supplier onboarding, on features and things like that, but that is going into the details. At a high level, if I think about the future, I really see this as a DNA that's going to bind all the different technologies together. And the market is huge out there. There are many people who don't even know about orchestration. Clients have 50, 60 systems that they are using and they don't know how to manage it. It's a huge technology investment that they have today. By just using this one tool, you might actually be able to get rid of a lot of your legacy that you don't even need, right? So I think that is really what excites me about the future.
Perfect. Thank you both. Well, that concludes the CPO Strategy podcast today. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the CPO Strategy podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, make sure that you subscribe or like our social media pages so that you never miss an episode. I'll see you next time.